all so much for attending today's crash course in home buying. As you all know, the reason you're here is to learn about purchasing a home here in the Central Texas, Austin area. Today, we're going to take about 30 minutes to kind of go through these slides. After that 30 minutes is over, I'll be available to answer any questions that you have about anything that we saw today. And for any of you online, on our Facebook Live or on our YouTube, feel free to reach out to me after the event and DM me directly with your questions, because I would be more than happy to answer them for you. So let's get going, right? The reason you're here, surprise, 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 is because you are curious what it takes to purchase a home here in the Austin, Texas area. So that's why you're here. So, most of you are here because you know me already, but for those of you on Facebook or maybe on YouTube watching this at a later date, you might not know who I am. Well, I'm Scudder. I'm a realtor here in the Austin, Texas area. I went to Cunningham Middle School, I went to Porter Middle School, which is now Ann Richards Girls School, and I went to Crockett High School. Therefore, I'm from South Austin, born and raised. And as you can tell by my little slogan here, it's basically a little bit about me. I'm a native Austinite who was called the 78745 home since the late 20th century. Again, most of y'all know who I am. I also have a QR code here that you can scan that'll take you to my website, where you can learn a little bit more about myself, my full bio, as well as take a look at my online reviews. And then lastly, take a look at my current and active listings that I currently have on the market here at the beginning of 2025. All right, so moving on. So one of the things I like to start with is stats. I got my undergraduate and graduate degree in history and archaeology, so I'm a big person that likes to kind of pay attention to where we've been. Therefore, it gives us a better idea as to where we're headed. So when I first started teaching this class, it was actually in January of 2017, which is crazy because here we are in February of 2025. So for 8 years, I've been teaching this crash course in home buying. And so when I started in January of 2017 teaching this class, you can tell here that according to AWAR, the median home price in the Central Texas, Austin area was $280,000. I mean, I bet you were still wishing that was still the median home price here in the Austin, Texas area. So then moving forward a little bit, we can see here are the January of 2018 stats that say that the median home price is $290,000. So we can see in the span of 1 year, we had a $10,000 increase over the median home price in the Austin, Texas area. So now jumping forward several years, we are now looking at the January of 2025 stats. Now the median home price is roughly $410,000 now. So within the span of 6-7 years, we saw an increase of about $120,000 in the median home value in the Austin, Texas area. Now the reason I show this is because we, of course, are inundated with social media and media in general, and the media always likes to put out headlines and articles that maybe are a little bit fearful as to the future. And so the reason I put this up here is because really when you hear the term from people that there is no better time than now to purchase a home, that is in fact because that is correct. There's no better time than now to purchase a home, because think about the home that you were maybe purchasing 5 years from now was less expensive than in 2025. So I always like to point out these stats to give people a good idea as to where we were, where we are, to give you guys a pretty good idea of where we're headed in 2026 and 2027. This is also from January and February of 2025. Basically, most of y'all don't know that at the beginning of this year, 2025 is a fantastic year and it is off to a fantastic start. Rates are actually lower than they've been in about a 12-month consecutive period, and inventory is up by 28%, which means rates are better than they've been in over a year, and you have more homes to choose from, therefore giving you the better likelihood of finding the home of your dreams. So again, no better time than now. So as we kind of move forward, taking a look at the numbers here, this is just kind of a general perspective of basically Texas buyers. I'm only going to touch on just a couple of stats that the Texas Realtor shared. Basically, 32% of Texas home buyers spent 13 weeks or more looking for their home before they submitted an offer. And 85% of Texas home buyers consider purchasing a home in the Texas real estate market is a fantastic long-term investment. So you can see here, people spend some time purchasing homes, but people also think it's a fantastic financial investment to make. So 85% is pretty strong. So now, you've come to this class, you clearly are kind of mulling over the idea of purchasing a home here in the Austin, Texas area, which is great that you came here because you are going to leave with so much more knowledge than when you came. So you want to buy a home, but where do you start? Well, most people start with I don't know, and that is a totally normal place to start where all of us start. But you're here, so at least you're taking step one in the right direction. So first step in the home buying process is finding a realtor. Most of you all here, and hopefully most of you all online, already have a wonderful realtor that you are in contact with that is already helping you kind of navigate this home buying process. So I always tell people that finding a realtor is going to be probably the most important part of purchasing or selling a home, because your realtor really is going to hold your hand, guide you, and help you navigate through the process, therefore making the process as stress-free and as easy and as relaxing of a process as possible. So again, finding a realtor really is important. You want to make sure you mesh really well with their personality. You want to make sure they have some experience so you know that if you do get into a tight situation, you have a realtor that's going to navigate you and educate you through that. And then 3, you want to kind of know that they know the contracts, they know the market, they know what's happening and what's going on. That way, again, you make the best and most educated decision about the home that's right for you. So once you've decided you found yourself a realtor, this is kind of a new slide that I've had to insert here because I can't go any further without addressing what's the deal with the NAR settlement. So NAR, basically for those of you that don't know, is the National Association of Realtors. And back in August of 2024, we had some changes that came through that kind of had the real estate industry a little bit shook up, had again media publishing articles and videos and headlines, maybe misleading people as to kind of what the NAR settlement actually meant. So I'm going to address it here because I feel it's very appropriate to address basically step 1 in the home buying process is finding a realtor. So the NAR settlement only changed that ever so slightly. And so for those of you that are out there that are familiar with this, and for those of you that aren't, the only 2 changes that have been made when you are purchasing a home is 1, you are no longer allowed to advertise buyer agent commissions in the MLS. You literally can advertise them anywhere else. You just can't do it on the MLS. And then 2, you have to have a buyer or tenant representation form signed prior to entering a home. So this is something that I've done throughout the years. I've always had a buyer's representation form signed. I typically like to give it a couple weeks into the process. That way we kind of established a relationship. You trust me, we like each other, we know that it's going to be a good fit moving forward. Well, unfortunately now, that has to be one of the things that's signed right off the bat, because like I said, you can't walk into a home unless that form is signed. And the form basically goes into the areas that I'm allowed to show you homes. It goes into the type of service that I'm going to be providing you. It goes into the length of time that we will be a buyer-agent kind of relationship. And then lastly, it goes into the commission that I will be paid. Now, I will share another little tidbit for you on this NAR settlement is that with the commissions, still about 93% of sellers are paying a 3% buyer's agent commission, with 5% paying 2%, and then roughly 2% paying either 0 or 1. So you can see the vast majority of homes on the market, the sellers are still paying the buyer's agent commission. Therefore, the NAR settlement really had a little bit of consumer shook and definitely realtor shook. You can tell that really the only thing that's changed is that we're just not allowed to advertise commissions in the MLS, and sellers are still paying 3% buyer's agent commission. So now, moving on to purchasing a home. So you found a realtor that you really like. Next step is finding a lender. And if you have a wonderful realtor, such as myself, they will provide you a list of lenders. And this list of lenders will be lenders that your realtor has worked with in the past, that they know do a fantastic job at their job, and you will be very well taken care of. So finding a lender is the second step in this process because one, the lender is going to basically tell you how much home you can afford, and then more importantly, is going to tell you your monthly payment, and therefore you're going to decide, okay, I might be approved for $500,000, but do I really want that monthly payment that's $500,000? You might be looking at the $400,000 month payment and decide that's the better option. I don't want to be house poor. So the lender's going to tell you how much home you can afford and then how much home you want to afford. And then last but not least, a lender is also going to provide us a pre-approval or pre-qualification letter. And that pre-qualification and pre-approval letter is actually going to accompany our offer when we find the right home to submit an offer on. And therefore, it basically gives the seller and the listing agent peace of mind that we can in fact afford the home that we are submitting an offer on. And therefore, they feel really good about accepting our offer and taking their home off the market and no longer allowing anyone else to look at it or submit an offer on it. So the pre-approval letter is both good for you and it's also good for the seller. The other thing that I will say, again, my 2 tips that I love to give people when we're talking about lenders here is 2 tips with lenders is 1, I always recommend reaching out to more than 1 lender. 3 is kind of the magic number. The reason is because every lender is going to quote you different fees and different interest rates. So you want to make sure that you're going with a lender that you want to work with, but that also is giving you the best interest rates and is quoting you the best fees for procuring that home loan for you. My second tip is that once you do reach out to these 3 lenders and you start seeing all these different interest rates and start seeing all these different fees, you can actually compete lenders against each other to ensure that you get the best rate and the best fees for your home loan. So again, always reach out to more than 1 lender. And lastly, you can actually compete lenders against each other. So those are just kind of some tips about the lending process. I have a lot more, but for the sake of brevity, those are the only 2 I'm going to cover. So all right, so we found a realtor we like. We now have a lender that we're working with. We have our pre-approval letter ready to go for when we find that right home. Chances are at this point, your realtor has already set you up on an MLS search. You're getting emailed all of the homes that kind of fit your criteria and needs that we've discussed. I always tell people that an MLS search is a really important part of the process. Yes, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Compass, all of those third-party websites are fantastic and they're a great place to start, but you really want to get set up on an MLS search because that MLS search really is going to be custom fit to your needs and wants and what you want in a home. And probably most importantly is it updates every 2 minutes. Whereas I can tell you with these third-party websites, sometimes it's 30 minutes before they update, and then other times it might take a full 2 days before that website actually updates the current information. And they're pulling directly from the MLS. So again, we want to get set up on an MLS search to start scrolling through all those awesome homes that we're going to start looking at. So the next step in the process is, ta-da, we are finally looking at homes, right? So this is the fun part. After finding a realtor, finding a lender, getting set up on an MLS search, you are finally at the looking at homes part. And remember, most people look roughly for about 13 weeks before finding their home. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea as to how long that process might take. So we're looking at homes and then it finally happens. You find the one. You find the home that you are so amped about and we are going to submit an offer on this home. So we find the one, I'll send you comparables, I'll send you market activity, and I also will send you information that the listing agent has provided. Some of the documentation that you will receive prior to submitting an offer on a home is going to be a signed seller's disclosure notice, which is roughly a 4 to 7 page form that is filled out by the sellers that goes into what's present in the home, what's working in the home, what's not working in the home, what's up to code, what's not up to code. You know, have there been any big insurance claims on the property? Has the home ever flooded? Is the home located in a flood zone? Basically, any really pertinent information about the home, the seller will be providing us on this seller's disclosure form. Next, we'll get a survey of the property, which is kind of like a bird's eye view from the top down, looking at your build lines, where your fence lines are, where your easements are, where your driveway is. We'll also get a notarized T47 form that accompanies the survey that kind of validates that survey. And then last but not least, we might receive a list of updates, what the current seller has done to the home. And then if it's located in a MUD, we will receive a MUD notice, which MUD is a municipal utility district, which basically means that a private company owns your water. So your tax rates are going to be slightly higher than if it was city-owned water. So this is just some of the documentation you will have prior to submitting an offer. And like I said, I also like to provide comparables, and I also like to provide market activity, giving you a broad overview of what is happening in the neighborhood that you might be potentially purchasing a home. We will discuss what we think our sales price should be in the terms of the contract. We at that point will submit the offer. There might be a little bit of negotiating back and forth here and there depending on the type of offer that we've submitted. But once everybody has come to terms that they're comfortable with, the seller's happy, you're happy, the contract will be officially executed. And why they use that term, I don't know, because executed can be somewhat daunting and scary. But when the contract is executed, that officially means that you are under contract with your home here in Austin, Texas. And it is an exciting time. So congratulations, here we go on to the next steps. So once our offer is accepted, we then enter what is called the option period. And the option period can be a little bit scary. Reason being is because it's the time period where you are officially under contract with your home in Austin, and it might be a little bit scary to kind of see, oh my goodness, it's real, it's really happening. Also during the option period, there are a couple things that happen. The option period is typically 7 to 10 days. That is if we are not in a multiple offer situation. During these 7 to 10 days, you will drop off the option fee money and you will drop off the earnest money. Typically, this is done in an electronic form these days, ever since COVID. And the option fee typically is going to be pretty minimal. It's like $100, $200, $300, maybe $1,000 if we're in a multiple offer situation. But most of the time, it's about $100 to $200. Now, the option fee money is delivered to the title company to be held in your escrow account at the title company for the duration of while we're under contract. And once we do get to closing, your option fee money, which remember is at $100 to $200, will be seen as a credit towards your closing cost at closing. If for some reason something happens during the option period and we decide not to move forward with the home, and we do unfortunately end up having to terminate that contract, that option fee money goes directly to the seller. So just keep in mind that the option fee money will be seen as a credit if we do get to closing, but if something happens during that option period, that is going to be money that is given to the seller and is a non-refundable amount. Next is the earnest money. Now the earnest money is a little bit bigger of a deal. Typically, and again this is typical, earnest money is 1% of the sales price. And so therefore, if we're looking at a $500,000 home, your earnest money will be $5,000. Now, similar to the option fee, this money will be deposited in your escrow account at the title company that will sit in that escrow account for the entire time that we're under contract and will also be seen as a credit towards your closing costs once we get to closing. Now, if something happens, unlike the option fee money, which is non-refundable if we do decide to terminate during the option period, the earnest money is refundable. So if we decide to terminate during the option period, that earnest money, which is 1% of the sales price, so that $5,000, will be given back to you. So the earnest money is somewhat refundable. So those are the two things that will happen. The first 3 days of while we're under contract is depositing some money. We're also going to schedule a home inspection. Now again, I have home inspectors that I've worked with in the past that have even inspected my personal homes, so therefore I trust them and know that they do a good job, but you are more than welcome to choose whatever home inspector you like. During this period, we'll have the home inspected. That might include just a general home inspection, also might include a termite inspection, might include a sprinkler inspection, a pool inspection, septic, well, whatever we think we need to have inspected and whatever is present on the property, we'll have all those inspectors out there. Now, if it's just a regular home inspection, you're looking at anywhere from about $500 to $700, depending on the square footage. And obviously, that can get a little bit more expensive the more inspections we do tack on. Once the home is inspected, we will receive an inspection report. And this inspection report is literally going to list everything that is not functioning and wrong in the home. And it's a pretty big document, should be about 25 pages, and you want it to be as daunting and as extensive as possible because you want to know what you're getting into with the home that you're purchasing. Once we have that inspection report, if we need to have anybody out to the property, such as specialists like a roofer, an HVAC, plumbing, electricity, to kind of give us an estimate of repairs. Let's say something's flagged on the inspection report as needing to be identified. We then will have an electrician out to the property to take a look at that issue, and then will give us an estimate or an invoice that basically is going to tell us to fix this problem, it will be X, Y, and Z, and therefore cost this much. So once we've had the home inspected, we've deposited our option and our earnest money fees, we've had specialists out to the property, we then will negotiate repairs. Negotiating repairs is then in the form of just a one-page amendment, and it's done in typically two ways. One, it's going to basically be either us requesting that the seller do those repairs prior to us closing on the home, and providing us invoices and receipts that verify that those repairs have in fact been done, and we will also do a walkthrough about 1 to 2 days prior to closing to make sure that those repairs have been done. The other way repairs are negotiated is buyer's closing costs paid, meaning the seller is going to pay, let's say $3,000, to basically allow more money to stay in your bank account, and therefore allowing you to do those repairs after closing by whatever contractors you like. And so those are the two ways that repairs are negotiated, or a combination of the two. Typically there's a couple rounds of negotiating these repairs, totally normal. But once we get to the end of the option period, we really want to make sure that we're done negotiating repairs, and we want to make sure that we're 110% comfortable moving forward with the home. Because once we do get past the option period, your earnest money, which remember is at 1% of the sales price, so in our example, $5,000, is a little bit more difficult to get back if something happens while we're under contract past the option period. So the option period, again, a lot happens at the beginning of the contract. You're finding a realtor, or beginning of the process, you're finding a realtor, you're finding a lender, you're looking at homes, we're submitting offers, we're negotiating offers, we're having inspectors, we're negotiating repairs. So a lot really happens at the front end of this whole process. But once we get past the option period, things really kind of chill out and mellow out. And from the time that we go under contract, so that scary word executed, the whole process from start to finish is roughly 25 to 35 days. So again, if we go under contract March 1st, which is today, then we're looking at closing roughly probably April 2nd or 3rd. So that's kind of what's happening during March 1st to March 7th. You have all of that jam-packed stuff happening during the option period. But once we get past March 7th into that April 3rd in our example, really not a whole lot happens in the last 3 weeks of the process. So things kind of chill out and you kind of get to relax a little bit. So moving on. So a couple things that will happen during the last 3 weeks of this process is if your home is located in an HOA, we will get the resale certificate and the HOA documents. And basically what this is going to tell you is what you can and can't do with the homes. I always encourage people to really take a look, read through the HOA documents. They are fairly daunting and pretty boring, to be honest with you. But if you really want to paint your house pink, and your entire goal in your entire life has been to paint your house pink, you need to make sure that you read those HOA documents to ensure that you can, in fact, paint your house pink. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be kind of surprised at how many HOAs are not going to be okay with painting your house pink. So just make sure that once we do get these documents, you read through them, I'll read through them with you, and then we also kind of review that resale certificate also as well. Another thing that happens is we will receive a title commitment. And the title commitment is a document that is furnished by the title company that basically gives you an idea of an easement, the liens on the property, if there's any judgment, any court cases, anything like that. And we want to ensure that we have a clean title prior to closing. And that's why we use a title company, to ensure that the home that you're closing on will have a clean title prior to closing. Next, we'll also have the appraisal, right? And I always tell people this is typically going to be the last big hurdle in the process. Typically, the appraisal happens about 2.5 weeks while we're under contract. We get the results 3 weeks in, and it's we close. So again, it's kind of the last big hurdle in the process. And basically what the appraisal does is it is basically ordered by your lender, who then orders an appraiser to go out to the home to assess the value of the home. So in our example of $500,000 is our sales price. If the appraiser goes out to the property, writes his appraisal report or her appraisal report, delivers that to the lender, which then delivers it to you, we should see a value of $500,000 as the value that the appraiser has given the home, which is reflected in our sales contract, or $500,000 or more. So that's what we want to see with the appraisal. If, let's say, something happens and unfortunately the home appraised for $490,000 and not the $500,000 that is reflected in the sales contract, that's when we will have another round of negotiating with the seller. So typically, because we are 3 weeks into the process, the seller's really excited to close. They've started packing boxes. They're kind of counting their money and seeing what they're going to do with their proceeds. And you as the buyer are really excited to close in the next 7 days and move into your Central Texas Austin home. So typically at this point, if we're under contract for $500,000 and the home appraises for $490,000, typically what will happen is the seller will decrease the sales price to $495,000, and you as the buyer will bring an additional $5,000 in cash to closing to make up that difference between the appraised value and the sales price. Now I can tell you that that has happened 100% of the time on all the contracts that I've ever worked, because again, really everyone wants to move forward and close on the home. Now legally, the seller does not have to decrease the sales price, so just keep that in mind. But again, I've never had both parties not give a little bit once we do get to that particular situation. So once we have dealt with the appraisal comes in, let's say in our case, at value, at that $500,000, we are moving towards closing, right? So remember, we started this process of finding a realtor, getting with a lender, competing lenders against each other, getting ourselves set up on an MLS search, looking at homes, finding the one, negotiating the contract, and then here we are, that April 3rd, we are finally at closing. We made it through the entire process. So this is an exciting moment, and it typically, again, lots of relief here. So closing is held with the title company, and closing typically will take about an hour, and you will literally sign your life away and probably sign your signature about 250 times. And once we are funded, you will then receive the keys to your Austin home. So congratulations, you did it. Not only did you complete this home buying class, so now you know from start to finish what it takes to purchase a home here in the Austin, Texas area, you also just received the keys to your brand new home. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for attending. I hope you guys learned something, and for those of you online, I hope you guys learned something also. If you all have any questions with those of you online, please DM me directly or comment with the questions. I would love to answer any questions you had. And for those of you here, we're going to kind of cut the video off and I'll answer your questions and kind of sit down with you guys and give you guys a little bit more of a personalized experience. But again, this is just a little information about me, and remember to scan that QR code for, again, my full bio, my full reviews, and my active listings here currently in February of 2025 in the Central Texas Austin market.